So it feels like it's been forever. It's only been about a week since I got a decent print going. Had a bunch of issues with the MK3 and my CR10. Kind of hard to explain, but stick around, hear about a little bit of what happened, and see what I finally got to print out. Thanks, I'm Ron, and this is my place. So thanks for sticking around. It's been an interesting week. I had the tower print that I got going, and one of the first things that happened is I dropped it and broke it. So I got to fix that. But anyway, and then I was looking for something else to print, and I come up with a couple neat ideas. So I also spent quite a bit of time over the last week printing maker coins for Murph as well. I had some interesting issues. It started with the CR10, and I was having some severe layer adhesion issues. I've been fighting them for a little while. I use build tack on a flex plate system, and I kind of at one point found that the build tack seemed to wear out for me relatively quickly. And if I had lightly sanded it just to buff up the surface and then wiped it down real well, it kind of rejuvenated it. Well, fast forwarding a bunch of pain in the butt, it also creates high and low spots that you can't compensate for with ABL, of course. So I was creating my own nightmare. Finally broke down after everything else seemed to fail, and I replaced the sheet and hiding my laptop a little bit. I replaced the with a new sheet, and it just was sticking fabulously. Now, along with that, I also changed firmware, and I used Easy ABL from Timothy Hoogland, and I use his software or his firmware kind of setup that he uses. And something is different with it that I got to figure out, because my E-steps are all completely different, and I'm having major extrusion issues now with this new firmware. So I either need to buckle down and figure them out or switch back to the old firmware. But anywho, finally got through that. I started printing hardcore on the MK3. MK3. I hate when people say that. It's the Mark III. I don't know why I say MK3 now. I hear way too many people saying it. So on the Mark III, I ended up doing a bunch of maker coins, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, it started shifting horribly, as I alluded to in my previous video of the bearings. I had massive layer shifts, and it happened like 3 times in a row, and then I figured out the bearing thing, and now it's been printing great. But it kind of led me to think, going, isn't that the point, or one of the points of the Mark III? Why didn't it detect the shift? How come it didn't correct for it? Once it actually shifted and didn't realize it did, then it shifted and caught it and caused a shift because it thought it had a shift. So it shifted away from where it was and caused kind of a reverse shift. So that was a bit frustrating. I don't understand it. I'm sure there's a reason for it, just not one that makes any sense to my simple brain. So anyways, but I got through that. It seems to be going fine. I'm not skipping layers anymore. So I finally got down to the new model that I was printing out and started printing it, and it started fine. And then it was printing, and it seemed like it was printing good. It's got decent layers. I saw no major problems going on with it. And then it just clogged. It took almost a ½ an inch of a print for the filament sensor to realize that it had stopped extruding. It's almost like the movement of the filament in and out into a clog is enough that it actually detects filament there, so it doesn't actually do the detection of a real clog, which was one of the big primary functions of it. I thought it was just really frustrating. I mean, don't get this as like a bash on the Mark III, because it's not. It's just smart, and we got to work through all the the scenarios, but it was just frustrating that I've been plagued in the last week literally by things that the printer's designed to fix or not happen or correct for. So I found it really frustrating. And then an interesting part was then now I got this clog. Well, it finally detected after about a ½ inch of a print that it was clogged, and it stopped. So when I got home and I looked at it, it had cooled down everything. So luckily it stuck to the bed just fine, but it cooled the bed down, it cooled the nozzle down, everything was cold. So it could have very easily just popped off the bed. So I heated up the bed, heated up the nozzle. All I had to do was hit the button and it heated everything up. But now I was stuck with a clog. Well, a lot of times I'll actually heat it up a little bit and try and help push stuff through to break up the clog. You have no control. It's in a kind of a stuck limbo state. It just keeps asking if once you try and insert the filament, which you can't get out because it's stuck. And then when I finally got the filament out, it snapped it off at the Bowden tube, or the little Bowden tube insert going into the E3V6 hot end. So then when it tried to refeed, it went next to it and then overjammed it again next to the filament. Really frustrating. And now you have control over nothing because the printer is stuck in itself and it's in a software loop. So all it wants to do is push filament forward. Finally, I ended up getting the old the needles out and managed to get it unclogged, and it was horribly clogged. I really don't know how it happened. And I finally got everything extruding, and then it just gushed out and everything was just fine. And that was when I found out that it was a ½ inch too high now. So it was a run print, which was this. And I stopped. I actually, at that point, I just cooled down the nozzle, shut off the printer, and was done for a day. Came back to it, started another print, and heated it up an extra 5 degrees, and printed this one, which turned out wonderfully. So this turned out just great. It's basically a rock pile, and if you can see, there's a skeleton, the head, and there's the chest cavity, and the legs, and there's a sword, and the shield. It's really a cool model. And it printed really nice. Good layers. This was printed in MakerGeeks Crystal Blue, I believe is what it's called. And it's PLA. Prints at supposed to print at 235. It seemed to print better at 240. But yeah, and when I compared the two prints, honestly, they looked almost identical. I have no idea why it suddenly clogged. I really don't. I have no idea why. I didn't see any indication that it should have clogged. But anyways, it was kind of neat. As you can see, that's a gorgeous, gorgeous print, and it's a pen holder, which I thought was really cool. Of course, I'll put a link to it in the description below. But yeah, it's really got a nice finish to it. Of course, it's relatively easy to get a good finish with something this organic. It's pretty easy to make it look decent. But I thought overall it turned out really well. I think after painting it, if I can get myself to start painting some of this stuff, it would pop that skeleton out a little bit more. I was thinking painting it and be like an ice, kind of an ice block or something. So anywho, that was it. It's kind of a frustrating week when it comes to printers. But whatever, it's what they do. It was still fun. Managed to make it through on the Mark III. Still struggling a little bit on the CR10 with extrusion, and I've got to figure that out yet. I'll probably do that this weekend and kind of see if I can get a grip on that one. Supposed to go riding this weekend, so we'll see if that works out or not. But that was pretty much all I got. I'll link this one down below, and it turned out beautifully. It's a good print if you need a single pen holder. Well, I guess you could also put a sword in it so you can stab him. That's kind of cool. So anyways, I'll put a link to in the description to what this is. Hopefully we'll get all these things figured out, and I hope you don't have the frustrations that I had this week. Print everything you can, and thanks for coming. Remember, if you are interested in the videos, please subscribe, hit the like button. If you don't like what you see, hit the dislike button, but tell me what you got going on down below so I know what to change. Tell me what you think of the new area. I think it's looking like it works better. I think there's less distractions and it feels a little bit more straight on. So hopefully it works out for you. Again, print everything you can. Have a good night.